Chapter 1, 11 Seeking Help. After the end of the evening training, Hiro approached Tatsuki and few other guys of U18 team who were friendly towards him to seek for their help. And surprisingly, Tatsuki Siko and Naoto Miyashiro agreed with his request. However, they weren't willing to do him that favor for free, as they say that nothing's actually free in this materialistic world. Both of them had their own demands for doing him that favor. I'll introduce you to a delinquent friend of mine from my class who's also training to become an MMA fighter. Spoke Tatsuki. You're friends with delinquents? Intoned Hiro with his eyes wide open. Hiro was surprised to hear that Tatsuki, a footballer, was friends with delinquent. Well, technically he's not, since he just attained that title because he beat some delinquents who came to fight with him for absolutely no reason. Oh, how I pity that guy, Tatsuki mumbled while making a pitiful face. Then again, his facial expression quickly changed. With the sides of his lips curling, Tatsuki then made his demand for helping him. I'll introduce you to him, but you need to convince the coaches to include me in the extra training that you'll be receiving. Just as Hiro heard about extra training, his eyes opened wide, slightly frowning his brows. Hiro then asked, how did you know about the extra training? Since he hadn't told anyone about the extra training, which he was going to receive from the two coaches, Hiro was pretty shocked to find that Tatsuki knew about the extra training. Hearing Hiro's questions, Tatsuki pretended as if he was trying to remember from where he heard about the extra training, while scratching his chin. And after a few seconds of acting, he lowered his head and whispered in an intimidating manner, the walls have ears too. Suddenly a shiver ran down Hiro's spine as he heard Tatsuki's response. Seeing his scared expression, Naoto, who was standing beside him, spoke while lightly hitting Tatsuki on his back. Now don't scare him any further. With a dumbfounded look on his face, Hiro began to wonder about the meaning behind Naoto's words. Don't take his joke seriously. He's only playing prank on you. It was Manager Makoto who informed us about your extra training. Although he didn't inform about it to every player in the team. To ease our worries, he informed some of the core players in the team about your training so that we don't have to worry about your performance in coming Premier League. Saying such, Naoto tried to clear his doubts. Tatsuki, who was standing right in front of him, burst into laughter and began to apologize while smiling. Sorry, I shouldn't have scared you. Ha ha. As serious as Tatsuki looked, he was also a prankster from within. But why would you need me to convince the coaches if you already know about the extra training? Questioned Hiro after regaining his composure. Well, I already tried my luck, but they wouldn't let me join the training session because it was individually designed for you. Tatsuki replied while frowning his brows. Acting just like a child who was denied of her favorite toy, Tatsuki looked kind of depressed. Just how much are you obsessed with training, you muscle freak? Thought Hiro after listening to Tatsuki's plea. While most players avoided extra training, Tatsuki was a rare fellow who was very fond of extra training. Even in the morning and evening training sessions, he was among those few fellows who never complained about the intensity of the training. I'll talk to the coaches about it, and I'll try my best to convince them, but it'll be entirely up to them whether to accept or reject you, replied Hiro in a calm manner. Just by hearing that much, Tatsuki's face lit up. With his eyes sparkling, he then spoke in a cheerful tone. I knew that I could depend on you. Just why is he this happy to train more? Thought Hiro while contorting his face. Although from outside, he maintained his smile and continued to act as if he was happy for him. While turning his gaze towards Naoto, he then asked Naoto about his condition for helping him. Then what about you, Senior Naoto? What kind of condition do I have to fulfill to get your support? Well, nothing much. I just want to block some of your shots daily. I believe that by training with you, I can improve my reflexes. Naoto presented his condition. Hearing Naoto's condition, Hiro nodded his head and agreed to his request right away. Unlike Tatsuki's request, Naoto's was way simpler. Then I'll introduce you to a friend of mine who happens to be an amateur boxer. Although he'll not beat anyone outside the ring, you can use his looks and aura. He looks pretty intimidating even to me. So I believe he can be of help to solve your problem. Since Hiro couldn't directly ask their help for no reason, and he couldn't even tell them about his plans, Hiro had lied to them that some kids in his school were troubling him. And Naoto and Tatsuki, who believed his lies, were only helping him because of that reason as well. Thank you, Senior Naoto. With a smile on his face, Hiro bowed his head to thank the two seniors who were going to help him. Thank you, Senior Tatsuki. After thanking both of them for agreeing to help him, Hiro rushed towards Manager Makoto to start his extra training, which was going to take place in gym that day. As he was running towards Manager Makoto, Hiro began to wonder about few things. Although I did hear about Naoto and Kazuya in my past life, I wonder why I never heard about Tatsuki. Naoto and Kazuya, although didn't perform as per the expectations placed upon them, they were still decent players. And I believe when I was 22, I heard about Kazuya when he was playing for Kyoto Senga. And if I'm not wrong, Naoto used to play for Urawa Reds as a second-choice goalkeeper. Just what happened to them for them to degrade so much? Chapter 112 Gym. Since most of the players from the U18 team of Kawasaki Frontale were only decent players within Japan in his previous life, he couldn't recall every single one of them. However, seeing Tatsuki's performance on the field and his eagerness to train, it made him wonder why he never heard the name of such a dedicated player in his previous life. Tatsuki Siko. Tatsuki Siko. Tatsuki? Did I forget about him? Or did he encounter some kind of injuries like I did? Wondered Hiro while trying to remember about a player named Tatsuki from Kawasaki Frontale. Since he didn't pay much attention to J-League in his previous life, he wasn't much knowledgeable about the players from the J-League, and he only remembered the names of few of the extraordinary players from his previous life. Well, the way he overtrains himself, he must have injured himself in his previous life, murmured Hiro before joining manager Makoto. Dressed in a comfortable black-colored tracksuit, manager Makoto was discussing the results of the training with the positioning coach Kensuke Kimura. Maybe we should train Kinzuya to play more defensively, suggested coach Kensuke. But I believe he'll shine more while playing as an anchor instead, replied manager Makoto. And just as Makoto was about to point at his notebook, he noticed Hiro. Oh, you're here, mumbled Makoto while looking at him. He then turned his gaze towards coach Kensuke and spoke. Let's continue our discussion later in my cabin. Hearing manager Makoto's proposal, coach Kensuke nodded his head. And before he left their sight, he looked at Hiro and spoke. You're doing really great. So train well under the guidance of 2 coaches. Hiro nodded his head and replied, Thank you for your praises, sir. Then I'll see you later in the cabin. Speaking such, coach Kensuke walked away. Now, then, let's head to the gym, manager Makoto exclaimed. With manager Makoto leading the way, he headed towards the gym together with manager Makoto. From behind him, Tatsuki was gesturing him to talk to manager Makoto about including him in the extra training. Hiro was planning to vouch for him during the training, but after noticing his enthusiasm, he decided to talk to the coach right away. Sir, mumbled Hiro. Yes, Hiro. Sir, I was thinking of making a proposal. What kind of proposal? I was wondering if Tatsuki-senpai could join me in the extra training. Like with a rival, the training would be even more effective. Don't you think so, sir? Mumbled Hiro with a slight hesitation. The moment Hiro mentioned about Tatsuki, Makoto could guess that Tatsuki had asked him to vouch for him. But even so, he couldn't deny the fact that having a rival would further increase the effectiveness of the training. Thus, he stopped midway and turned around. Waving his hands at Tatsuki, he gestured him to come towards him. With a big wide grin in his face, Tatsuki quickly ran towards manager Makoto after noticing his hand gestures. While panting heavily as he arrived before manager Makoto, Tatsuki spoke excitedly. Yes, sir. Clearing his throat, manager Makoto spoke while pointing at Hiro. Do you want to train with him? Without any delay, Tatsuki gave his answer right away. Yes, sir. Good. Then follow me. Saying such, manager Makoto began to lead them towards the gym. With the sky dyed in red and orange hues, the ambience around them was starting to get chilly as the sun was on the verge of setting down. The grassy green field at that moment was painted in golden colors. Silhouette of the players, floodlights, stands and mesh fences were all over the pitch. As manager Makoto unlocked the gym, he signaled the 2 of them to head inside. Obeying his commands, both of them entered the gym. Partially dark, Hiro's eyes struggled to adapt to the darkness. Since it was already getting dark outside, the light coming from behind him and the window were barely enough to light up the whole room. Walking inside the gym, Hiro felt as if he had entered some kind of dark cave. Wait for a while, I'll turn on the switch. Mumbling such, Tatsuki walked towards the switchboard which was just beside the main door. Click, click, click. And just as he turned on the lights, the bright light coming from the LED light bulbs illuminated the whole place bright. Treadmills, dumbbells, exercise balls, ropes, and many more gym equipments were placed in an organized manner inside the huge, spacious gym room. Painted in black, blue, red, and white, the gym was finely decorated. Witnessing that well-organized and finely decorated gym room, Hiro couldn't help but compare it to the gyms he had seen in his previous life. You should probably close your mouth, or else a fly will enter inside your mouth, joked Tatsuki after seeing Hiro's expression. With his eyes gleaming and mouth agape, Hiro was staring at the gym room. Quickly closing his mouth, Hiro then walked further inside. Almost every equipment in that room was still as good as new. Welcome to the gym room of Kawasaki Frontale's youth facility. Equipped with advanced gym equipment, it's even par with the gym of the senior team. Manager Makoto announced with a sense of pride. Indeed, I can tell you since I've been to the senior team's gym. It is indeed par with the senior team's gym, although it's lacking a swimming pool, joked manager Nozomi while entering the gym room. Noticing manager Nozomi, Hiro quickly bowed his head and greeted him. Good evening, manager Nozomi. Good evening, Hiro. Manager Nozomi greeted him back. But I'm not your manager anymore, joked Manager Nozomi. Oh, it seems that we've got another player with us, continued Nozomi while looking at Tatsuki. Good evening, Manager Nozomi. Tatsuki quickly bowed his head and greeted Manager Nozomi. You still haven't changed, Seiko. Your hunger for training is still the same, mumbled Nozomi in a friendly manner. But you shouldn't overtrain yourself, Seiko. Although you're talented, you're way too much obsessed with training. Remember, rest is part of training as well. I'll keep that in mind, sir, Tatsuki replied politely. Then let's start the training. New quest unlocked. Title: Extra training with the coaches. Description: complete the exercises as per the coach's request. Duration: until the start of Premier League. Rewards: silver ticket. Penalty: deduction of random stat and electrocution. Chapter 1: 13 Diet Food. Just as Manager Nozomi finished making the announcement of the commencement of the training, Hiro heard the sound of the notification of the system inside his head. But don't I already have another quest pending? Confused by the sudden notification of the quest, Hiro complained. Not because he was unhappy with the quest, but because of the penalty, he was complaining about the quest. Since he couldn't afford to lose any stat, if he wanted to perform well in the Premier League, and also the description of the quest was rather vague, he was rather skeptical to accept another quest at that moment. You do. But both of these quests are completely irrelevant with each other, and both are for your own good. So why are you even complaining? Replied the system in somewhat arrogant manner. Well, that's true as well. Imperceptibly nodded Hiro. But why do I feel that you're being mean? You're just imagining things. While he was having conversation with the system, Manager Nozomi called his name several times. Hiro, Hiro. However, since he was talking with the system, he couldn't hear anything, and thus, he didn't respond anything at all. Unable to hear his response, Manager Nozomi then walked closer towards him and nudged him slightly. Feeling the sudden sensation of touch, Hiro quickly came back to his senses. Acting somewhat startled, he mumbled, "Yes, sir. Let's begin the training." Saying such, he quickly walked towards Manager Makoto, as if nothing ever happened. Manager Nozomi, who was standing beside him, was left dumbfounded by his actions. Scratching his scalp with a perplexing look on his face, Nozomi was wondering what just happened in that moment. Taking out 2 bosa balls and some weights, Manager Makoto then made Hiro and Tatsuki perform weighted bosa ball squats to improve their balance. And while the 2 of them performed the exercise diligently, Manager Makoto noted their performance in his notebook. After a few reps of weighted bosa ball squats, Makoto made them perform some reps of lunges, some reps of burpees, some reps of weight lifting, and finally he ended the training with 10 minutes of yoga. By the time they completed the extra training, the sun had completely settled down and the starry sky was filled with shimmering lights of moon and the stars. At 7:40 in the night, their training finally came to an end. Completely drenched in sweat, steam was oozing out of their exhausted, sweaty body. Quite satisfied with their progress, Manager Makoto and Manager Nozomi were looking at the data which they've collected during the training with their lips curled. Huff, huff. Panting heavily, Hiro and Tatsuki, both of them were lying on the gym floor, completely exhausted. Their muscles bulging and sore. They were having difficulty in moving their body. How long are you guys planning on sleeping on the floor? Aren't you guys planning on having dinner? Manager Nozomi spoke sarcastically while looking at them. Just 1 minute more. Tatsuki spoke with great difficulty. At around 8:15, along with Tatsuki, he entered the canteen after having a quick shower. Because of the exhaustion from extra training, both of them walked quite slow and stiffly, just like a mechanical robot. And that day, the coaches had informed the chefs in advance about his extra training and had specially asked them to prepare him his special diet food, which consisted of chicken breast, avocado, eggs, salmon, some rice, miso soup, and some vegetable salad. Extremely hungry because of the extra training, Hiro's eyes glowed as he witnessed the food prepared for him. Well, that's a lot of food. And we also have chicken breast. Hiro mumbled in awe. Since Hiro was really fond of chicken, he couldn't help but feel excited about the food prepared for him. But why do they look kinda uncooked to me? Noticing the bland color of the chicken breast, Hiro questioned. Yeah, they look kinda uncooked. Tatsuki, who was standing right beside him, nodded his head seriously. But who cares about the look? Taste is king. Plus, I'm really hungry right now. I could eat a whole chicken by myself, mumbled Tatsuki while gulping his saliva. After that, both of them headed toward the table and placed their tray full of food atop the table. And as they sat down, both of them thanked God for providing them food to eat. Thank you for the food. Joining their hands in a namaste, they expressed their gratefulness before eating. Just as Hiro took a bite of the chicken breast, Hiro contorted his face and quickly spat the chunk of chicken breast in his mouth. As unpleasing as the dishes looked, the taste of the food was even worse. With not much spices, the food tasted completely bland. Hiro, who was used to eating food, which were taste buds pleasing, quite didn't like the taste of the bland dinner specially prepared for him. "Sir, I think you forgot to add spices," complained Hiro after having a bite of the food prepared for him. Tatsuki too spat the food out of his mouth and nodded his head. "Yes, sir. The food's kind of bland. Eat what you're getting to eat. The coaches had specially asked me to prepare this dishes for you. So if you have any complaints regarding the food, then complain it to the coaches, not me." An old man in his 50s who was dressed in white chef uniform, standing at the counter, replied in a harsh tone while making a bitter face. That old man, along with few other staff members, were responsible for cooking the food for the players residing in the hostel. And unlike other staff members, that old man was the only one who resided in the hostel. "Don't get angry, old man Aniki. We're not complaining about your cooking. I've been eating the food you prepared for more than 3 years, and have I ever complained about your food? In fact, I very much enjoy the food you prepare. But can you please add some salt and pepper?" Tatsuki tried to calm the old man with his flattering words. Chapter 114, Preparation I. Sunday, November 11th, 2021. With the permission of Manager Makoto, Hiro, Tatsuki, and Naoto, the three of them left the hostel at around 11 o'clock in the morning to meet the guys mentioned by Tatsuki and Naoto. However, they didn't mention the real reason to the coach. Instead, they had lied to the coach that they'd be visiting the shopping mall to buy some new clothes. And since Hiro was still new to the city, Naoto and Tatsuki were barely accompanying him, although their reason was partly truth and partly lie. Casually dressed in dark green-colored hoodie and blue jeans, Hiro was walking along with Tatsuki, who was dressed in dark blue-colored plain sweatshirt and beige-colored casual pants. Naoto, who was dressed in white shirt layered with cream-colored cardigan and navy blue casual pants, was leading the way. "Hurry up, guys. Manager Makoto has strictly warned us to be back by 3 in the afternoon," spoke Naoto while leading the way. After walking for a while, they took a cab to get to the shopping mall. And after about 15 minutes of cab drive, they arrived in front of the shopping mall, which they were visiting that day. While Naoto and Tatsuki were managing the cab fare, Hiro was standing in front of the luxurious shopping mall made up of bricks, concrete, and glasses. Fountains, flowers, colored lights, LED billboards. The shopping mall was luxuriously decorated. Many people dressed in different kind of fancy dresses were entering and exiting the shopping mall. Some were carrying a lot of shopping bags in their hands, while some were simply there to enjoy their time. "Why are you acting like it's your first time visiting a shopping mall?" While slightly nudging Hiro behind his back, Tatsuki questioned. "Well, it's actually my first time visiting such a grand shopping mall," murmured Hiro shyly. Since he rarely visited shopping malls, and the ones at his hometown weren't as luxurious as the one he was at that moment, Hiro couldn't help himself from staring at the majestic shopping mall in front of his eyes. "Then this brother of yours will show you around the shopping mall today." Proudly stating such, Tatsuki gave Hiro a gentle push behind his back. "But before we go, let me put on my mask. I'm afraid if I head inside bare-faced, my fans will recognize me." Tatsuki mumbled with a sense of pride and took out a black-colored mask from his pocket. Since Tatsuki had already debuted for the senior team, he was quite concerned about his image. Although not many of them even remembered his face since he only played 10 minutes, he was still proud about his achievements. "As if anybody would even know you," Naoto mumbled meekly in a sarcastic way. While putting on his mask, Tatsuki mumbled, "Did you say something? Cover your eyes too. What if they recognize you just by looking at your eyes?" Naoto replied sarcastically. Tatsuki took Naoto's words seriously and didn't get the sarcasm behind his words. I forgot to bring my shades," mumbled Tatsuki while touching his pockets. "Leave him be. Let's head inside." After that, the three of them headed inside the shopping mall. And as they made their way inside, Tatsuki mumbled, "Just don't be intimidated by him. Although he looks kind of intimidating, he's really easygoing person." Hiro only slightly nodded his head without replying anything. Inside a coffee shop, a fair-skinned guy with well-defined facial features was sipping coffee while sitting at a table in the corner, all alone. Although his facial features were well-defined, he had accumulated quite a bit of scars all over his face. His knuckles were bruised, and a layer of dead skin had covered his knuckles. Walking inside the coffee shop, Tatsuki yelled loudly while waving his hands at the black-haired scar-faced guy. "Why am I?" Hearing his loud voice, the Batistas of the coffee shop, along with several other people present in the coffee shop, all turned their attention towards them, giving them cold stares while staring at them with their bulging eyes. They all looked pissed by Tatsuki's loud voice. Shuh. Naoto tried to silence Tatsuki. "Keep your mouth shut, you idiot." At the same time, Hiro, who was tagging along with them, lowered his head and apologized to the people present in the coffee shop for disturbing them. Tatsuki's behavior embarrassed them quite a bit, and after apologizing to the people present in the coffee shop, the three of them quickly made their way towards the black-haired guy with scars all over his face. "You never change, do you?" chuckled Amai, the black-haired guy. "So he's like this even in school?" thought Hiro after hearing Imai's words. The scars in his face and his cold eyes does make him look kind of intimidating, but he's got a warm smile. Thought Hiro while looking at the face of Imai, who was conversing cheerfully with Tatsuki and Naoto with a smile on his face. And who's this friend here? Questioned Imai while looking at Hiro. Sorry, I forgot to introduce you to him. Tatsuki apologized. This guy's right here is our new teammate, Takahashi Hiro. Tatsuki introduced Hiro. Hello, Hiro. I'm Ikuo Imai, friend of Seiko, and I'm also friends with Naoto. Imai introduced himself while lowering his head politely. Nice to meet you, Senior Imai. Greeted Hiro while lowering his head. Senior? Imai blurted out dumbfoundedly after hearing Hiro call him Senior. Oh right, I forgot to mention that he's only 12 years old. Haha, Tatsuki chuckled. What 12-year-old? Imai intoned with his eyes wide open in disbelief. Yup, that was the kind of reaction I was expecting. Naoto mumbled casually as if he was expecting that kind of reaction from Imai. Ordering few cups of coffee, Hiro then explained to Imai about his plans. Although he didn't mention his real purpose for making him do such things, Hiro thoroughly elaborated his plan to Imai. Since my friend's brother is asking me for help, I won't decline it. However, if it were someone else, I would have already walked away. But consider yourself lucky. Imai agreed to his request, and after talking for a while, the four of them exited the coffee shop. I need to head to restroom, guys. I'll be back. Saying such, Imai separated from them. Although Hiro mentioned everything about his plan to Imai, he still hadn't disclosed everything because of the presence of Naoto and Tatsuki. But just as Imai separated from them, he found a perfect opportunity to disclose his whole plan to him. And hence, he made an excuse to talk to Imai all alone. I also need to use the restroom. Do you want us to come with you? Replied Naoto in a concerned manner. Since Hiro was still new to the shopping mall, they feared that Hiro might not be able to find a restroom on his own. No, I'll just follow Imai. Saying such, Hiro declined their offer. Chapter 115 Preparation complete. After declining the help of Tatsuki and Naoto, Hiro began to chase after Imai. Senior Imai, wait for me, shouted Hiro while chasing Imai, who was heading towards the restroom. Hearing Hiro's voice, Imai paused all of a sudden. Turning back towards Hiro, Imai spoke politely. Oh, are you heading to the restroom as well? Without replying anything, Hiro simply nodded his head. After walking few steps, the two of them arrived at the restroom. With several compartments, the neatly organized modern restroom was quite empty as well, and besides the two of them, there weren't any other people present in the restroom at that moment. But even so, Hiro still had absolutely no idea on how to disclose his real intention to Imai without angering him. Either he'd have to speak the truth, or else he'll have to make some reasonable excuses to get Imai's help. But either way, he'd have to disclose his true purpose to get his help. Senior, Imai, have you ever gotten bullied? Asked Hiro meekly while trying to start a conversation with Imai. Well, not really. Shaking his head, Imai started to walk towards one of the compartments to finish his business. Although if you can count the abusive training of my coaches as bullying, then yes, I've been bullied. Spoke Imai sarcastically before entering one of the compartments. Although Hiro really had no actual business to attend in the restroom, he still entered one of the compartments to not make him seem suspicious. However, little did he know, Imai was somewhat suspicious of him from the moment he mentioned about his made-up story to Imai. Were there not any bullies in your school? Asked Hiro while forcing his pee. Well, there were a few of them in my elementary school, and it's the same in the middle school as well. Casually replied Imai while urinating. Although Imai didn't mind Hiro asking about such stuffs while he was peeing, his suspicions towards Hiro was growing even further after hearing Hiro's repeatedly asked questions. But why are you asking me about bullies all of a sudden? If you're worried about the bullies in your school, then I've already told you that I'll help you with it. Mumbled Imai while zipping his pant. But then again, do you really need my help? Just by observing you, I could tell that you're pretty strong. And since you're already playing professional football despite being only 12 years old, I doubt if anybody would actually dare to bully you. Hearing Imai's response, Hiro went silent all of a sudden. He knew that Imai was getting suspicious of him. After all, his whole story sounded extremely ridiculous. Was he suspicious of me all along? Pondered Hiro while staring blankly at the lock of the door of the compartment. Maybe I should tell him the truth. And just as he came out of the compartment, Imai mumbled casually while washing his hands. From the very beginning, when you told me about your story, I found it really hard to believe it. And after following me to the restroom, you keep on asking about bullies. Yup, he's suspicious of me, thought Hiro after hearing Imai's words. However, Hiro didn't reply anything at all and kept on listening. After turning off the tap, Imai walked towards the hand dryer to dry his hands. And as he finished drying his wet hands, he walked towards Hiro. Squinting his eye and furrowing his brows, he looked extremely serious. Just tell me about your true intention already, spoke Imai in his deep voice. My patience is running out. Noticing Imai's facial expression, he decided to tell him the truth regardless of the consequences. I'm doing this for a friend of mine. He had been bullied by some bullies. Hiro then elaborated everything he knew about Masao to Imai. Although he didn't mention much about Shotaro, Hiro still told Imai about the generosity of Masao, the tragedy he faced, the bullying he endured. Almost everything which he knew about Masao, Hiro revealed to Imai without mixing any lies, just as it is. So that friend of yours was bullied for no reason. And you're seeking for my help because you want to help him regain his confidence and make those bullies realize their mistake and apologize to your friend. Mumbled Imai while trying to process the information he just received at that moment. Yes, I want to help him to open up. Because if he continues to lies like this, I'm sure somewhere in the near future, he might even consider ending his life. So I just want him to muster some courage to face his fears. Spoke Hiro after revealing his true plans to Imai. At first, he was doing all those things for the sake of quest. But as he dived deeper into the story of Masao, he felt sincerely sorry for Masao. After all, in his previous life, he also had ended his life because of some similar reasons. After listening to Hiro's elaboration, Imai paused for a while. Standing in front of Hiro, as if he was in some kind of deep thinking, Imai looked lost in his own thoughts. Upon seeing the expression on Imai's face, Hiro too kept his mouth shut. In order to not disturb him, he kept his lips tightly sealed. Outside the coffee shop, Tatsuki and Naoto had been waiting for Hiro and Imai. And since the moment the two of them left for the restroom, 15 minutes had already passed. Continuously tapping his right foot against the floor, Tatsuki was trying his best to hold him back from exploding. Naoto, who was standing right beside him, was simply browsing through his phone without reacting. Finally, as Tatsuki's patience ran out, he abruptly stopped his leg, scrunched his brows, and cussed. FK. What's taking him this long? Tatsuki's sudden cussing startled Naoto, and he nearly dropped his phone from his hands. Geez, did a demon possess you? Sounding somewhat irritated, Naoto mumbled. Paying no attention to Naoto, Tatsuki shrugged and mumbled, just how long are they going to take? Finally, after thinking for a while, Imai opened his mouth. Since you're doing this for your friend, I'll help you. Hearing Imai's response, Hiro's lips curled up and a smile appeared in his face. With his eyes gleaming, Hiro mumbled, sounding all excited. Really? You're really going to help me? Since I value friendship very much, I'm doing this for the sake of your friendship. Imai replied in a calm manner. Although I don't like hitting or scaring kids, I'll make use of those useless bunch of delinquent bastards for my class. Continued Imai with a sinister smile on his face. One could tell just by looking at his smile that he was planning something really sinister. However, at that moment, the only thing Hiro cared about was Imai's willingness to help him. And thus the feeling of gratitude clouded his vision. Thank you. Hiro lowered his head. Thank you very much. With the help of Imai, he was sure that he could humble those bullies and make them apologize to Masao, and also complete part of his quest at the same time. Although just by humbling those bullies and making them apologize to Masao, Hiro wouldn't solve his problem in its entirety. However, by doing that, Hiro could drastically reduce the chance of Masao skipping the classes. And it could also help Masao to have a better school life. After all, regaining once lost confidence and overcoming from a painful experience required quite a bit of time, and the scar left by such incidents wouldn't heal overnight. Hiro didn't want to hurry. He was in no rush. But for now, we should head out. We've stayed in the restroom for way too long. And also, you didn't forget about Naoto and Tatsuki, right? They're still waiting for us. Saying such, Imai began to walk out of the restroom. But before Imai could leave the restroom, Hiro stopped him. I'll wait. Hearing him, Imai slightly nodded his head. Please don't tell about this to Naoto and Tatsuki, Hiro requested. With a smile on his face, Imai nodded his head and waved his hand, gesturing Hiro to follow him. But just as they exited the restroom, they witnessed Tatsuki's angry face. His mask tucked inside his pocket, his bare face was looking somewhat red. His brows were scrunched, and there was visible anger in his face. Flaring his nostrils, Tatsuki spoke while staring at them with his cold eyes. What took you two so long? Were you guys perhaps sleeping inside the restroom? Quickly thinking of an excuse, Hiro mumbled, while coming out of the restroom, I saw a few girls from my class. So we were hiding inside the restroom. With an awkward smile on his face, Imai nodded his head. Yeah. Huh. They were really crazy. Squinting his eyes, Tatsuki was somewhat skeptical about Hiro's reasons for being late. If so, were they right now? Sounding somewhat skeptical, Tatsuki questioned. Well, they just went downstairs. So maybe they're in one of the women's fashion store. Replied Hiro without any delay. While making their way towards a coffee shop, Hiro had memorized the location of different stores present inside the mall. Having memorized the location of several stores, that information came really handy at that moment. Chapter 1:16 Wizard. Since Tatsuki couldn't deny the fact that there were quite a lot of women's clothing store in the floor below, he had no other choice but to believe Hiro's words. Although he was a bit hesitant, he still accepted Hiro's words nonetheless. "Phoenix, I'll trust your words," Tatsuki mumbled while pouting his face. Hearing Tatsuki's response, Hiro and Imai, both of them released a short sigh of relief and impetuously smiled at each other, while exchanging glances with each other. "So now if you've cleared your doubts, then shall we shop something? After all, if we go empty-handed, then the coach is obviously going to get suspicious of us. And if he somehow finds out about our lies, he'll never permit us to leave the hostel again," Naoto implied. "Then let's head to the sports store first," Imai suggested. "I too have few things which I need to buy." After that, the four of them did a bit of shopping. Hiro bought some shorts, short shocks, and 2 comfortable tracksuits. He still hadn't used his money which his parents had provided him before leaving home. Naoto and Tatsuki, the two of them bought 2 pair of shocks each and some undergarments. Imai bought himself some sportswear and some tapes for taping his knuckles. And by the time they finished their shopping, it was already 2:05 p.m. "Now I think we should head back to the hostel. After all, the coach has strictly warned us to be back by 3. Naoto spoke while looking at his phone. Tatsuki and Hiro, both of them, nodded their head. "Before we head out, can you give me your phone for a while, Hiro?" Imai asked for Hiro's phone before heading out. Hiro then took his phone out from his pocket and handed it to Imai. Hiro was using a decent Android phone at that moment. Since he wasn't a big fan of expensive mobile phones, he hadn't bought anything expensive for him despite earning quite a hefty sum of money from YouTube. Although he wasn't in charge of his money, or that's what he still believed since his parents hadn't disclosed the secret that they were saving the money under his name. "Do you have a Facebook or Instagram account?" questioned Imai while typing something on Hiro's phone. "Duh, but I don't use it," replied Hiro. "However, I'll be opening a new account today." "Well, that works as well." Saying such, Imai handed him his phone back. "I've put my number, so call me once you make your account. After all, I still need to know the identity of the bullies which you mentioned about earlier." Although Hiro had disclosed everything to Imai, he still hadn't provided Imai with the pictures of the bullies. And without knowing how they look, Imai couldn't do anything. "Thank you, Senior Imai. I'll call you later after making an account." Tokushima, Japan. Inside a traditional Japanese-style 2-story wooden house, at the second floor, Akashi, the spiky-haired guy, was lying on his bed, fiddling with his phone. Though he already told me that he couldn't use mobile phone in the hostel except during weekends. However, it has already been about a month since he left for Kawasaki, and he still hasn't contacted me. While frowning his brows, Akashi mumbled to himself. He kept on thinking about Hiro, and the more he thought about him, the more he got agitated. "Ark, let's not think anything negative. He's not the type of guy who'd abandon his friends." Speaking such, he rose from his bed. He then walked toward the window to get some cold air to cheer him up. Taking a deep breath, he then started to stare blankly at the night sky. The night sky was just like a painting, beautiful and full of colors against the inky, black abyss. The canopy of stars were flickering like the flames of spectral candles, and luminous glow of the moon was cutting through the darkness. And looking at the serene glow of the crescent moon, he felt at ease. Lost in the beautiful scenery in front of him, he completely forgot about his worries. Ding! Just then, a sound of notification came from his phone. Despite hearing the notification, he didn't react and instead ignored the sound of the notification. Finally, after about 5 minutes, he lifted his gaze away from the night sky. He then walked toward his bed. Throwing himself in his bed, Akashi then picked up his phone. And just as he turned on his phone, he saw a notification from the Instagram. It was a follow request from an account named Wizard, and the account didn't have a profile picture yet. "Who's this Wizard guy?" mumbled Akashi. "Well, the only wizard I know is Hiro. It's from Hiro." Excitedly mumbling such, Akashi abruptly rose from his bed. Instead of using his real name, Hiro had opted for using an alias. And since he went with the name of Soccer Wizard back then, he used Wizard as his alias for his Instagram account. In order to prevent people from searching his name online, he had intentionally used an alias. After all, his real purpose of making that account was to communicate with his close friends. Quickly accepting the follow request, he then immediately sent a follow request to Hiro, since Hiro had also kept his account private. Hiro, however, didn't accept his request right away. And as impatient as Akashi was, he began to message Hiro. "It's you, right? Man, you took so long. Yulman, why aren't you replying?" After about a minute, Hiro finally accepted his follow request and messaged him back. "Yup, it's me, your friend Hiro. How have you been, Akashi? Sorry, I was occupied with something." Akashi, who was glued to his phone, didn't take long to respond. Just as he received Hiro's messages, instead of messaging him, he video called him. Ring, ring, ring. Hiro picked up the call. He was inside his room, seated at his bed. Ya, Shunta, and Shun, The three of them were also in Hiro's room at that moment. "What took you so long to answer?" complained Akashi as soon as Hiro picked the call. "Well, we were discussing something," Hiro replied. "We?" Sounding somewhat confused, Akashi questioned. Since he couldn't see the rest of his three friends in the screen, he was confused by Hiro's use of pronouns. "Wait a while," mumbled Hiro. Chapter 1:17 Video Call. Noticing Akashi's dumbfounded look, Hiro then turned his camera towards his friends present in his room. Pointing his camera towards Yuya, Shunta, and Shun, Hiro introduced them to each other. "These guys here are my teammates. Yuya, Shunta, and Shun." Hiro introduced his friends. Former teammates." Coughing a little, Yuya spoke sarcastically. Hearing the sarcasm, Shunta and Shun burst out into laughter. And as he introduced the three of them to Akashi, all of them waved their hands towards the camera, greeting Akashi with cheerful smile on their faces. Akashi too quickly changed his tone and introduced himself politely to Hiro's friends. Noticing the sudden change in Akashi's tone, Hiro couldn't help himself from staring at Akashi with his eyes wide open. As if he had seen something mind-blowing, he just couldn't handle the sudden change in Akashi's tone. When did this idiot learn to speak so politely? Man, he's even more unpredictable than my system, Hiro thought to himself. And as the four of them started to chat with each other, Yuya snatched the phone away from his hands. Since both the sides were close to Hiro, instantly the four of them clicked with each other. As if the four of them were already friends with each other, they completely forgot about Hiro at that moment. "All right, what kind of girls do you guys like?" asked Akashi while making a serious face. What are they talking about?" Suddenly, they're talking about girls. With a dumbfounded look on his face, Hiro thought after hearing the progress of their conversation. Wasn't he pissed at me for not calling him a moment ago? "A girl with cute face and curvaceous body," Shun replied with his tanned cheeks turning kinda red. Hiro could tell who he was talking about just by hearing those simple words. "Minami Miura," thought Hiro after hearing Shun's reply. "Just why don't you reveal her name, too?" giggled Yuya. "Yeah, he has a crush on this girl, named Minami Miura from our school." While smiling, Shunta revealed the name of Shun's crush. "Although I've been hearing some rumors that she's interested in Hiro instead." "You?" Shun gritted his teeth as he jumped atop Shunta, playfully. "It happened to you too?" Akashi intoned, sounding somewhat surprised. Hearing Akashi's reply, Shun paused and replied, "What do you mean by you too?" "There was this girl named Nanami whom I had a crush on, and I only found it recently that she had a crush on Hiro instead," Akashi revealed. And as Akashi revealed that information, all four of them switched their attention towards Hiro, staring at him coldly. They looked like they were about to commit murder. Noticing their gaze, Hiro knew they were up to something. "I'm not at fault, guys. I don't even know them much," spoke Hiro while trying to defend himself. After all, he hadn't done such things intentionally. As expected, the three of them then launched towards Hiro while yelling, "It's all because of your good looks." "Damn, I'm so jealous of your looks," cried out Shun. The four of them continued to wrestle playfully for a while. Akashi, who could hear them loud and clear, was laughing till his stomach started to ache. Finally, as they calmed down, Akashi spoke again. "By the way, what do you think of Hiro's footballing talent?" Hearing Akashi's question, the smile on their face faded away. All of a sudden, the ambience around them got ghastly silent. While making a serious expression, Yuya blurted out, "An unsurpassable talent. I do enjoy playing with him, but sometimes his talent intimidates me," Shunta added with his voice slightly shaking. "I feel the same as well. He's already a nightmare for goalkeepers and defenders. I wonder how lethal he'll be once he makes it to the professional stage." Shun mumbled while looking at Hiro with eyes full of admiration. Akashi, who was listening to their answers from the other side of the phone, nodded seriously. "I can relate to that, but as his friend and as his teammate who played with him since he was a kid, I can tell you all that if you learn from him, you all will definitely improve. With his guidance, I made it to the Nationals, and for that I'll always be grateful to him." Akashi spoke with great admiration. Although Akashi never once revealed about it to Hiro, but he was always really grateful to Hiro for helping him improve. Hearing such words of admiration, Hiro felt his body tingling. With the sides of his lips twitching, he tried to control himself from smiling. With his heart filled with a sensation of warmth, he was extremely happy to hear such warm words from his friends. However, as happy as he was, he maintained a poker face and acted as if their warm words didn't affect him in any way. "I wonder if he'll become the first Asian player to win a Ballon d'Or in the near future," Shunna added. "Well, I'm not sure about it, but it's likely possible since by that time Messi and Ronald would have already hanged their boots." Yuya joked. "But don't forget about Mbappe and Haaland. They both have already won Golden Boy Award for the year 2017 and 2020 respectively. By the time Hiro moves to Europe, they'll already be in their prime," replied Shun. "You guys are forgetting about Pedri, Saka, Bellingham, Foden, and many more." The world is still filled with vast number of talented players. And who knows what kind of monsters are hiding. Hiro too joined in on the conversation. Although he knew about the name of the future winners of the Ballon d'Or, he decided to keep it secret. Also, there was also the possibility of the future changing, since his regression could trigger a butterfly effect. As small as it is, any changes in the past would directly affect the future after all. Suddenly, their casual conversation steered into football talks. Talking about the possible future winner of Ballon d'Or, all five of them expressed their own opinions. And as such, the five of them kept on conversing about football for nearly 2 hours. Chapter 118 Undead Crown. Monday, November 12, 2021. In an alleyway, a bunch of guys dressed in black hotties who looked like gangsters were gathered together. With the lower part of their faces covered by a black handkerchief with a design of skull, only their eyes were visible. The black hottie that those guys were wearing were perfectly identical with each other because of the design of human skull wearing a crown printed at the back of their hotties. I really don't get it. Has our Undead Crown gang fallen to this degree that we're stationed here in an alleyway to scare some bunch of kids? A scrawny-looking guy complained. Indeed, and why does he want us to hit those kids with football instead of our hands? I'm not even good at playing football. A somewhat fat-looking guy with slicked-back black hair nodded his head while pointing at the football which he was carrying in his left hand. Hearing their complaints, suddenly a guy of average height who was sitting in a goblet squat position stood up and walked toward the fat guy who was holding the ball in his hands. With a rubber band, he had tied his medium-long black hair into a man bun. Some low-sin strands of his hair, which broke free from the rubber band, were dangling freely in front of his fierce-looking black eyes as he made his way towards the fat guy. And just as the guy with the man bun reached the fat guy, he abruptly took the ball from his hands and spoke in a somewhat irritated tone. "Then why don't you go and fight with him?" Upon hearing the words of the guy with the man bun, the fat guy lowered his gaze. His movement froze, and as if he was afraid of something, he couldn't reply anything. How can we face that demon Amai, Hanagaki? He could literally take on an entire gang by himself, replied the scrawny-looking guy from before. Yeah, last time when we messed with him, we ended up in hospital bed. And not to mention those MMA freaks who were supporting him. They have clearly warned us that if we even touch a strand of his hair or piss him off, they'll use us as a punching bag. Another guy with somewhat brown hair and tawny-colored pupils joined in. Then just do as he says if you don't want to get beaten instead. Hanagaki intoned, sounding somewhat pissed. Just then another guy with straight black hair came running towards them. Panting heavily, he looked out of breath. Even so, despite heaving so heavily, he spoke. "They're coming." Hearing his words, all of the guys present there at that moment rushed towards the end of the alleyway to hide themselves. Coming from the other side of the alleyway was Masato and his underlings dressed in school uniform, probably heading to school. Joking and laughing, they were making their way towards the place where those guys dressed in black hotties from before were hiding. Completely unaware of the danger which was about to befall on them, Masato and his underlings were goofily walking without any care. "It must be so nice to have permission to skip the school," spoke Kitsu, the fox-faced guy. "Man, I wish I could skip classes." Another guy sighed. They were obviously talking about Masao, since he had been absent from the school for more than 2 weeks already. Talking such, they kept on walking. And as they approached the intersection at the end of the alleyway, they got ambushed by those black-hooded guys. Seeing those guys, a few of the underlings of Masato tried to scream, "Hell!" But before they could scream, those black-hooded guys covered their mouth and prevented them from screaming. Quickly encircling them, those black-hooded guys completely blocked their escape route. Intimidating and tall, each and every single one of those guys looked very terrifying. "Who?" shuddered Masato with a terrified look on his face. "Who are you all? I think you got the wrong person." As talkative as Kitsu was, he kept on rambling, out of fear. "Just follow us silently. We got something to talk to you guys," spoke Hanagaki in an intimidating way. Hearing Hanagaki's response, Masato stealthily looked to his left and right. Searching for an escape route, he was prepared to abandon his friends and flee away all by himself. But Hanagaki and his friends simply left no route open for him to make his run. Unable to find any route open for him to make his escape, Masato yielded to the power of Undead Crown Gang. "Okay," meekly replied Masato while slightly nodding his head. "Good choice," Hanagaki mumbled, praising Masato's choice. "All right, if any of you tries to escape or scream, I'll promise you that I'll find your house and torture you for the rest of your life." As if he was simply suggesting them, Hanagaki spoke such threatening without raising his voice, calmly. "So be a good kid and follow this brothers silently," the fat guy from before added. Hearing such threatening words, Kitsu and the other guys started to tremble. Chattering their teeths, the complexion of their skin turned pale. Their hearts started to beat faster and faster, as if it was going to pop out of their mouth. Their eyes wandered around them erratically. Some of them were gulping their saliva non-stop that their mouths soon turned dry. Even so, out of fear, nobody among them dared to make a single noise. Shrinking their body, they continued to follow Hanagaki and the other fellows without questioning anything. The more they walked, the more silent their surrounding got. The houses in the surrounding got less and less as well. And finally, after walking for about 5 minutes, they arrived in an abandoned apartment under construction. The incomplete 4-story apartment building's concrete pillars were covered with green mosses. Few of its walls were built, while almost more than 60% of its walls were wide open. Looking at the gloomy, incomplete apartment building in front, Masato thought to himself, "Isn't this that building which was abandoned after a guy killed himself? This is that haunted apartment building," cried out Kitsu with his eyes wide open. With tears forming in his eyes, Kitsu began to cry and beg, "No, please don't take us there." Chapter 119 Blaming Game. The morning sun was shining brilliantly and spreading its warm rays across the surface of the vast land. The blue sky was as clear as still water, and few lumps of white clouds of different shapes and sizes were floating freely in the far-off horizon. However, with the winter making its appearance, the atmosphere was still kind of chilly, despite the sunny day. And the abandoned apartment building in front of Masato still looked spooky even during the daytime. "Did you already forgot about what I said earlier?" Hanagaki, the guy with man bun, questioned politely after hearing the cries of Kitsu and few other guys. "But this place is haunted." With tears rolling down his eyes, Kitsu cried, "Then I'll let you meet the ghost of this place today." Hanagaki mumbled casually while looking Kitsu in the eyes. "And if you keep talking, then maybe I'll send you to his world as well." And as Hanagaki was speaking, suddenly he scrunched his brows and grabbed Kitsu's chin with his right hand. He then threatened Kitsu, "So if you don't want to turn into a ghost yourself, then keep your mouth shut." Hearing Hanagaki's statement, a shiver ran down the spines of other kids present there at that moment. Even Masato looked extremely terrified. Some of them were even on the verge of wetting their pants. "Please let me go," cried out Kitsu in muffled voice. Without making any sound, the rest of the kids were also sobbing and begging in muffled voices. Masato and his underlings, all of them were almost in the same condition. Hearing their cries, Hanagaki increased his grip and squeezed Kitsu's cheeks even more tighter than before. Squeezing his cheeks, Hanagaki then yelled furiously, "Just shut the FK up and follow me." Hanagaki's roar scared the shit out of them. Feeling totally breathless, Masato's heart stopped for about 3 seconds. As strong as he made himself appear in front of other kids, Masato was actually very weak. He was that guy who was strong to weak and weak to strong. He was the type of guy who liked to prey on weak guys to satisfy his ego. After that, Hanagaki and the rest of the guys from Undead Crown Gang led them inside the abandoned building. Wandering their eyes here and there, Masato and his underlings fearfully followed Hanagaki and others. The inside of the building was even more creepier than its outer appearance. Cobwebs of spiders were present in almost every pillar and corners. Dark and gloomy, some of the walls contained red stains on it, which looked like blood. And as they moved further deep inside the building, a musky smell of soil and rotten smell of dead mouse made them cover their nose. "What's this smell?" While contorting his face and grabbing his nose, Masato questioned. However, nobody from the Undead Crown Gang replied to his questions, and the fatty behind his back simply gave him a push and spoke, "Keep on moving." Finally, after walking for a while, Hanagaki suddenly stopped. They arrived in a spacious room with a huge wall. "Now, then all of you will answer my few questions. And if I'm satisfied, I might let you go, and if I'm not, then who knows what I'll do." Hanagaki mumbled while staring at them. "I heard that you guys are bullies. Is it right?" Hanagaki questioned. "No, sir. No, sir." Almost all of them denied the accusations and shook their heads immediately. "Oh, okay," Hanagaki murmured. Then for the second question, Hanagaki continued his questioning. "Then it wasn't you guys who bullied our boss's cousin, right?" "No, sir. We haven't troubled anyone. Never in my life have I ever bullied anyone," Masato replied. The rest of his underlings, too, shook their head and denied Hanagaki's claims. "Oh, then I might be wrong. But if you're telling lies, then the consequences will be really bad," Hanagaki mumbled while walking back and forth. Suddenly, one of the underling of Masato asked curiously, "Sir, what's the name of your boss's cousin?" "Masao Kuramoto," Hanagaki replied, while turning his gaze towards the guy who questioned him. Hearing Masao's names, they began to panic. Their body temperature suddenly started to rise, and they started to sweat profusely all of a sudden. They never imagined that Masao had a cousin who was a gangster. After hearing Masao's names, they knew that they could no longer lie to Hanagaki. But since the main culprit was Masato, and most of them were only following Masato, they could get away unscratched if they just told Hanagaki the truth. And if they could simply put the blame on Masato and hang him on the guillotine, then they could save themselves from being hung on the guillotine. That's what Masato's underlings started to think. Masato, on the other hand, started to panic even more than other. Hearing Masato's name, his heart skipped a beat, and suddenly it started to beat erratically, slowly turning his gaze towards his friends, or that's what he thought until he was caught by a gangster. He found them all sweating profusely. At that moment, Kitsu, the fox face guy, suddenly opened his mouth. It's all Masato's fault. I tried to stop him several times, but he never listened to me. Sir, he was the one who bullied him. Hearing Kitsu's words, Masato frantically yelled, "What are you speaking, Kitsu?" To save themselves, Kitsu and other guys had decided to put the blame on Masato. "I'm speaking the truth," Kitsu replied. He was the one who made Masao his bread shuttle. Showing off his strength, he often hit Masao, and we only followed him because we feared his strength. "Oh, is that so?" Hanagaki questioned after hearing Kitsu's claims. "That's right, sir. We're innocent, sir. We only followed his will." The rest of the guys nodded their head and pleaded not guilty. "How could you all put all the blame on me? Wasn't it your idea to traumatize Masao by mentioning the name of his dead best friend Kitsu? And it wasn't only me who used him as bread shuttle. You all guys were involved as well. And it wasn't only me who beat him and oppressed him. You all did the same as well." Masato, after hearing the accusations of his underlings, started to have a meltdown. Exactly as predicted by Imai. They're all putting the blame on that Masato guy, thought Hanagaki after hearing their words. And as time progressed, they kept blaming each other. The blaming game progressed. Hanagaki was still thinking that everything was planned and predicted by Imai. However, the real mastermind behind the scene was Hiro. He was the one who had meticulously planned everything. 120 torture. Faced with a greater threat, Masato and his underlings did exactly what most of the people would do in that kind of situation. Put the blame on someone else to save their own neck. Don't act like you all are innocent now. 3 weeks ago, I saw you guys venting your anger on Masao in the school toilet because you were scolded by teacher in class. Masato revealed. "Oh, you want to talk about such stuffs? Then I'll tell you, sir, once he hit Masao so hard on his solar plexus that he was literally coughing blood. And do you know why he did that? He did it to test his fighting skills. Whenever he learns a new fighting move, he tests his skills on Masao." Kitsu started to dig even deeper on Masato's wrongdoings. And since his parents were one of the major shareholders of the school somehow covered up that whole incident and let him off the hook with only a single warning. "These kids are even vicious than us," thought Hanagaki while hearing their wrongdoings. "Are they even kids? They're like devil with the appearance of kids." "Enough," shouted the fat guy with slicked-back black hair. Hearing his furious roar, Masato, Kitsu, and the rest, all of them shut their mouth. All the people present, they were startled by his sudden roar. "Hanagaki, we don't have all day to listen to their yapping. So, let's just finish our task and quickly head back." Sounding very irritated, the fat guy mumbled. Hanagaki nodded his head and replied, "Yeah, you're right. Let's just do what we were told." Hanagaki then turned his attention towards Masato and his underlings and spoke while pointing at the huge wall in front. "All of you go stand in front of that wall." "But we're not at fault, sir. We're innocent, sir," cried Kitsu. The rest of the guys also started to plead for their innocence. Masato, on the other hand, remained completely silent. He knew that he wouldn't escape unscratched no matter what he did. He had already yielded to his fate. "Perhaps you didn't hear what I said." Speaking such, Hanagaki walked towards the side of Kitsu. Bang! Hanagaki then all of a sudden punched Kitsu hard on his stomach. Getting hit on his stomach, Kitsu let out a painful scream, "Arg!" Followed by his scream, he immediately threw up. Drool coming out of his mouth, he fell down on the ground while grabbing his stomach. Writhing in pain, he looked very miserable at that moment. Witnessing the pathetic sight of Kitsu crying and moaning in pain, the rest of the guys present there started to panic even more. Trembling with fear, they were having trouble moving their body. Their faces completely pale, there was a fear in their eyes. "Did you guys not hear me?" Hanagaki yelled furiously. "I said move." The hot guys who were standing behind them gave them a rough push on their back. Getting pushed from behind, some of them stumbled and fell on the ground, roughly. "And you two get up and stand over there." Kicking Kitsu lightly, Hanagaki commanded Kitsu to stand in front of the wall. However, Kitsu couldn't bring himself to move his body, and he kept on moaning in pain while grabbing his stomach. Seeing his unwillingness to move, Hanagaki then commanded other gang members to carry him towards the wall. "Carry him to the wall. We can't leave anyone out." Hearing such, 2 scrawny guys grabbed each of Kitsu's arms and carried him towards the wall. The rest of the kids walked on their own. "What are they going to do? Are they going to pound us with rocks?" shuddered one guy while walking towards the wall. And as all of them nervously lined up in front of the wall, Hanagaki spoke. "You might want to cover your face and private parts. And if anybody dares to run away, mark my words, I'll throw a stone at you and open your skull." Hearing such threatening words, Masato and his underlings immediately covered their face and temples with their hands. except Kitsu, who was still grabbing his stomach. All of the other guys nervously covered their faces. "Bring the balls," Hanagaki commanded. Upon hearing his command, one of the guys dressed in black hotties left the place. "Reflect on what you've done wrong. And if you want to take revenge on us, feel free to come and look for us. However, I'll warn you before you decide to take revenge. If any of you gets caught at that time, just know that it's the end for you. Oh, and before we start your punishment, I'd like to add another thing. If we find any of you guys reporting this incident to anyone else, let's say your friends, parents, or police, then be prepared to face the consequences." Sounding all serious, Hanagaki threatened the kids in front. Just then the guy who left earlier came back with a sack of football. "Make sure to remember this pain and repent on your actions." Speaking such, Hanagaki and the rest of members of Undead Crown Gang started to pound Masato and his underlings with football. And since the ball kept on rebounding back to them because of the wall in front of them, Hanagaki and the others kept on hitting Masato and his underlings with the ball non-stop without any break for about 10 minutes. Getting hit by the ball over and over again from such a close distance, all of them shrunk their body into a shape of ball to prevent themselves from getting hit. For that entire 10 minutes, they all kept on screaming in pain, and the pain kept on intensifying with each hit. Despite the gradual decrease in the power of impact, it felt like getting hit by a rock instead of a ball after some moment. The part of their body where they were hit the most had completely turned blue and was starting to swell. However, luckily, not a single one among them lost their consciousness. But still, those 10 minutes of pounding felt like an hour-long torture to them. Patches of blue marks from the collision with the ball appeared all over their body.